All right. Good morning, IDB board members. It was wonderful to see everyone. I will now call the March 22nd, 2022 meeting of the Industrial, let me rephrase that. The March 23rd, 2022 meeting of the Industrial Development Board to order. It appears we do have a quorum, so we will now get this meeting underway. Second order of business is the public comment period. Is there anyone from the public wishing to speak today? All right, as there does not seem that there's anyone wishing to speak today, we will close the public comment period and move to item number 3, new business. A presentation and discussion regarding the 3 firms that responded to the request for qualifications for IDB bond counseling services. We do have the 3 firms here in person, Carpenter, Owings, and Waller. And very quickly, I just want to say again, when I was notified that we need to find counsel to represent us as issuers counsel as a board, I thought that was extremely important. And so several months ago, we put a committee together, and I asked Courtney Polk to serve on the committee with me, Joshua Thomas with Metro Legal, and also Michelle Bosch with Metro Finance. And I want to thank them because this has been a lot of work, and I appreciate their services to the Industrial Development Board in helping me to talk about what we were looking for in candidates, talk about what we think we needed to convey in the RFQ, and then certainly after that, the committee has had several discussions, and also the committee has also met with these firms virtually as well. And I can give more feedback on that at a later time on some of the thoughts of the committee, but certainly overall we felt as a committee that we had 3 quality firms, and it made sense for all 3 firms to come before the board. But again, ultimately it will be a board decision on how we move forward. So again, I want to thank the committee. It's been a lot of work, but we're excited, and we think we have 3 quality firms to present to the board today. And then certainly one other item we looked at and this board discussed was looking at trying to ensure we had a diverse talent pool, and I think we did that. But again, we did that without compromising on quality. So very excited today. And again, I want to thank the Metro team for working with me and on the committee as well. So with that, this board received the responses that these firms submitted to the RFQ last week. And the purpose of again, today is to give the board, again, the committee has met with these individuals virtually and been able to ask questions, but this gives the board members an opportunity to ask each firm questions. Again, there is no need to vote today. Let's do this right. Let's take our time and give board members a chance to process the information, and then we can regroup and discuss. So we'll go one by firm. And again, I will say I do want to thank the firms as well for responding to the RFQ, but 2, being willing to meet with the committee and certainly being willing to come and meet with this board in person today. And several of the firms are out of town, traveling from out of town as well. So thank you to the firms for doing that as well. So without further ado, what I'd like to do is I'll call up the Carpenter Firm first. If you all will come here, introduce yourselves, and maybe take about 10 minutes, as we discussed earlier this week, our committee meeting, give an overview of your firm, why you responded to the RFQ, maybe why you think you're a good fit to work with us, and then I will turn it over to my board members and my colleagues for questions. So thank you. And you have to press the right there.
Good morning, everyone, and it's our pleasure to be here. I am Charles Carpenter, the founding member of the Carpenter Law Firm. We are based and spend much of our time in Memphis, but we also have an office here in Nashville. We have done quite a bit of work in this area of municipal finance. We were the first African-American law firm in the history of the state of Tennessee to be listed in the Red Book. We have been in the Red Book since 1992. We've worked on over 200 plus municipal financings, over $14 billion in volume. In the capacity as bond counsel, we've been bond counsel for the city of Memphis for over 20 years. We have served as underwriters counsel for all of the major broker-dealers in the nation, and we continue to serve in that capacity in many cases. We also have a lot of experience in revenue bonds, housing bonds, sports authority, airport, utilities, education, and we are very active in this marketplace in the various roles. We also have been engaged as disclosure counsel for Metro Nashville, and we have also worked with, in addition to Metro Nashville government, the Metro Nashville Airport Authority, the Sports Authority, and we have current engagements with the Convention Center and other facilities. Primarily, the reason that we wanted to serve in this capacity is because of our experience with the Health, Education, and Housing Facilities Board in the city of Memphis. We've been their general counsel and issuers counsel for over 20 years. They are similar to an industrial development board, and it's just under a different statutory authority under the Tennessee Code annotated. So we have a tremendous amount of experience in doing that. We also work very closely with the Industrial Development Board in Memphis, Shelby County. We've served as bond counsel, as underwriters counsel for that facility. They are represented by Ferris Babango Law Firm that serves as their issuers counsel. So we have not served as issuers counsel for the IDB, but we currently have engagements with them ongoing right now. And one of the things that we have learned in working with the government, particularly in Memphis, but in other locations as well, because we have a regional practice, is that when these economic development ideas come up, the first thing is, well, how do we pay for them? And the IDB is uniquely situated to facilitate the issuance of bonds and to coordinate other financing vehicles to help with these economic development programs. Last year with our IDB, we served as bond counsel for the city of Memphis with Mayor Strickland's Accelerate Memphis program. It provided financing for Liberty Park, which is a youth sports development, mixed-use facility containing hotels, containing this one of the largest youth sports facilities in the Mid-South, in an effort to stimulate tourism, to bring more economic development into the area. And we did that financing through the IDB, and it was a very unique financing, issued over $200 million worth of bonds to do that. So we have a lot of experience with creative financing. We have a lot of experience with government relations. We know how to combine the economic development activities into the financing vehicle. And because of that experience and the excitement that goes on here in Metro Nashville, we just wanted to continue to grow and be a part of it.
And my name is Carpenter Carpenter, and to supplement what my father-in-law partner said, just two things. One thing is just to hit on one point that he really made is we're uniquely situated in a way that we serve in various capacities on various financings. For example, major firms may just serve in one particular capacity, bond counsel or issuers counsel. Because we serve in all four major capacities, disclosure counsel, counsel to the underwriters, issuer counsel, and bond counsel, we have a unique holistic perspective of these financings. So whatever capacity we serve in, we may have a particular responsibility pursuant to whatever the engagement is for our client. However, we have a whole perspective on what each particular part of the financing needs, because in transactions, it's not adversarial, of course. So no one wins if the deal does not close. So because of our experience and just different and various perspectives, we bring that uniqueness to the table in that regard. Second point is our continuing education and training that we prioritize every year. We hold various memberships. One is the National Association of Bond Lawyers, where we just had a conference. We have 3 conferences per year. We get about at least 20 to 25 CLE hours a year with that. And that is just, discussing and conversing with the different regulatory bodies, IRS, the SEC, the MSRB, the Municipal Securities Rulemaking Board, and just, seeing, and just discussing hot topics, what is prevalent in the industry, from affordable housing, from, public infrastructure. And we also, do a lot of multifamily housing as well. And with that, we are both a member of the National Housing and Rehabilitation Association. They are stationed here in Nashville, but they also have an office location in D.C., Washington, D.C. So with that, we are members of the Tennessee Developers Committee. So meaning that we get to interface and interact with different developers throughout the state and kind of get, we work with developers with the Health and Ed Board, but just, having that holistic perspective from the policy side, the political side, and also the practical aspect, I think really sets us apart.
Thank you. And before I turn it over to my colleagues, could you talk a little bit specifically, and it sounds like you have done a lot, specifically if you can touch on 2 items. One would be your specific experience as issuers counsel. You talked about that briefly, but if you can go into more details with that, especially with the Health and Education Board. Mm-hmm. And then 2, what your fee structure would look like should you be selected to represent this board as issuers counsel.
Okay. So with the Health and Ed Board, we serve as, Mr. Chairman said, as issuers counsel and general counsel, so it's kind of a dual role. When we serve in the capacity as issuers counsel, it's typically during a bond financing. So we would, take care of all the preliminary resolutions that need to be filed. So the inducement resolution will take care of the TEFRA hearings, the posting for that, the interaction with the city mayor, the interaction with THDA. So pretty much all of the administrative procedural aspects will work really closely with bond counsel to get that accomplished. Do all the necessary resolutions and just see that throughout the financing and the post-issuance compliance that the issuer has to comply with. We'll take care of that as well. As the general counsel standpoint, just generally, we do meet monthly, so we are present for our monthly board meetings. We facilitate those board meetings. We help prepare the minutes. For the board meetings, we help with the posting. Of course, as I'm sure the IDB does, we have to post our meeting at least 2 weeks in advance. So we take care of all the administrative things, the facilitation of the meeting, and the preparation for next month and whatever happens in the interim between that.
And let me just say, specifically for us in this role, we would not need general counsel. Mm-hmm. A little bit different. We have a Metro Legal to provide the board with the general counsel, but we would need you to work as certainly issuers counsel. Absolutely. In the example that you gave, and certainly you would be interacting with bond counsel, the other party that would come before the board. So specifically, what would your fees look like in just that scenario?
So with the scenario as issuers counsel,
yes,
typically issuer counsel fees are paid as a part of the cost of issuance. So in that respect, we would consider our fees to be captured as a part of the cost of issuance for the financing. As to financings or applications before the board that do not close, typically the resolutions that are prepared would require the applicant to pay fees even if the transaction does not close, because those fees would be earned, and again, that would be paid through the cost of issuance or through the applicant. So from there, it just would depend on any other scope of services that we would need to provide, and if that is the case, that would be on an hourly rate. If Metro Legal provides those services, of course, then that's no fees that would be earned by our firm. So that's the way it works. One of the other things I wanted to mention very quickly is that with the creative financing, we were able to establish a payment in lieu of tax program for the Health Ed Board in the city of Memphis. And our IDB board in Memphis also has a pilot program, which has been very successful in expanding the benefits to the tenants, the end users and their families, as well as generate substantial capital for the conduit issuer to provide other services throughout, the community to help move forward with the mission that the quasi-governmental entity has.
Yep, thank you. So just to clarify, in the specifically focused on Issuers Counsel, in those instances, you would not anticipate any fees being paid to you for your services in that specific scenario, in those scenarios from the Industrial Development Board. Is that correct?
It would be a part of the cost of issuance of the financing.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that. Well, I appreciate it, and I will turn it over to my board members for any particular questions, and I will start here on my left with Board Member Oakley.
So you do have representation in Nashville. Which one, are you either one of you, or do you have other attorneys? Do you have an office on Metro?
Yes, so it's both of us. I would come down more frequently. I come down maybe 2 or 3 times a month just to work in the office a few days a week. But we do have our Memphis office that, we still maintain as well every day. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Anything else? All right, thank you. Board Member Davis.
Thank you, Chair. Not really much on questions. I mean, I really, like the experience that you mentioned and everything with City of Memphis and the different boards there. Yeah, I was kind of thinking the same thing. As long as we're used to having our council at our meetings, just being part of sort of, not part of the board, but per se, but, present with the board on a regular basis, even if there isn't something kind of coming up. So I don't know if that's something that you guys would provide, but that's kind of what we've gotten used to, I guess, over the years with local council. So,
absolutely, that is something that we are more than willing to do, for sure.
Yeah, great points, and I think part of that too is, and we'll let the other candidates talk about it, but certainly we have not, as we've discussed, this board has not been charged fees in the past, and so our Issuers Counsel and Bob has come to all those meetings, even when there was not necessarily anything on the agenda. And so I think certainly maybe we've, which has been great, but that may not be unless this board is willing to pay.
Yeah, and exactly.
But certainly, to your point, anytime there was a bond matter, we would certainly expect you as counsel to be at the meeting, I would say, for sure, 100%.
So. Right, yeah. And, it kind of goes back to that. I don't know if it's related. It seems related to that fee structure conversation we were going to be getting into at some point as a board with, as someone applies for a certain thing, and then it makes, now I'm hearing they charge based on a percentage or whatever of the actual overall deal or whatever. So, that kind of, as we're looking at that whole thing, it seems like a good time that we're going to be having this holistic conversation about our fee structure as a board.
Absolutely, and what they're talking about with their fees is consistent to how, even though Bob would come to all the meetings, so he's not, I guess, not technically getting paid for those, but his fees were paid out of this board did approve and bonds were issued is how his fees were, is how he was compensated, not from the board, though. Anything else, Board Member Davis? All right, thank you. Board Member Clark?
Hi, thank you. I agree. I thought your experience sounds great. And my questions are also kind of around the Nashville connection and scope of what would be included in the engagement and what would be charged extra for. I didn't see, and I may have just missed it, but are your hourly rates in the RFP proposal? And if not, could you share those?
Sure. I have them, so I wrote them down. So let's make sure, we'll see if you say the same thing.
He also, well,
Or I don't know if I wrote down what I wanted to hear.
his is actually accurate. Mine was a tad outdated, so.
Oh,
Yes.
here we go.
Yes,
This
but
is
his
already
was
attorney talk.
I know. Father and son talk probably more so.
Yeah.
But mine is, when we work with our, private clientele, mine is $400 an hour. But when we work with different governments, of course, we give them a substantial discount from what it is. So when we work with different governments, quasi-governmental entities, I do a range between $325, $350.
Okay.
But we like to do a blended rate when we work with different governmental, because of course his is higher than mine, 43 years of experience, and rightfully so. But we do like to do a blended rate in these situations.
Yeah, and I think that when we spoke with the committee, we talked about that because we don't really know what you have been accustomed to here with the IDB. Typically, because of the various sources of revenues with the conduit issuers in Memphis, they all have been successful with substantial budgets. Over the years, with my experience and in this complex area, my fees are over $500 per hour, but we would typically reduce that to $425 for governmental and quasi-governmental entities.
Thank you. And are there would we expect any charges from either a time or travel expense from the travel from Memphis to Nashville?
No.
Thank you.
No, not at all. As a matter of fact, we're just attempting, we have 90% of what we do is municipal finance. So we have what's called a boutique practice. So we travel a lot, and based on the pandemic, we were able to take advantage of the remote activities, and many of the members in our working groups, they're all over the country. The bankers in New York, Chicago, other law firms are out of state, so that's not going to be, you won't ever see any expenses or for travel coming from our firm to the IDB.
Great. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Board Member Hannah. I will go to my right now, Board Member Cordova. Any questions or comments for the Carpenter Firm? All right, thank you. Board Member Forrester, any comments or questions for the Carpenter Firm?
Thank you for coming. We have attorneys on the board. They're a lot more experienced than I am in this kind of thing. I'm just curious, though. There's just the two of you in the practice. If something were to happen to one of you, or God forbid both of you, what happens then?
I can respond to, let me let them answer that question.
Well, we do have of counsel attorneys. One of my colleagues is Carl Stafford. We met at Notre Dame Law Firm back law school. I said law firm, Notre Dame Law School over 40 years ago. And he left Notre Dame, went to NYU, got a master's in taxation, and has been a bond lawyer since. And we collaborate and we work together. He's based in Detroit. He continues to work with us, and we work with him on various matters. So we have backup in that regard. So if something happened, and we were just looking at this horrible Chinese flight that crashed crashed and killed everyone on board. If something like that would happen, we do have backup that would wind that practice up so that the clients would not be prejudiced or left, without, representation. But if something would happen to one of us, the other would continue. If something happened to both of us, we have provisions in place to wind the practice up so that the client can be handed off to someone that could keep the process and their issues and matters going forward.
Board Member Forster, any other questions or comments? Thank you for that. And the part I just want to say in general, as a board, is certainly as we move forward, we want to choose Issuance Counsel if we want to continue to do bond deals. This board passed last quarter we passed the affordable housing development, a bond for an affordable housing development project in East Nashville on Dickerson. We also passed the bond infrastructure agreement for Century Farms out on I-24. So if this board wants to do that, then we certainly are at a point where we need to decide on Issuers Counsel. But I would say keep in mind that, and this is not directed to the Carpenter Firm, but in the event that we selected a firm in a year from now, 18 months from now, 6 months from now, we felt that it was just not a good fit, we can pivot and make a change. And I will say, I think the positive, even though this has been a challenging time, because there's been a lot of transition the last several months with and I say our team, I mean our IDB and Metro team, the positive part of this is that we've gone through this process. So if we needed to go through it again, because I don't think this process, I think the last time this was done was maybe 10 years. It was before I was on the board, and this is my 7th year. So I think the positive part of this is we've also gotten the boards, even though there were some attorneys that did not apply, there were attorneys that responded to us and said, thank you, not right now, maybe later. So I think the positive part of this is that we've done this, and we've got a system in place that if we have to do it again, for whatever reason in the near future, we have the ability to do that. So. All right, Vice Chair Mr. Gall, we'll turn it over to you for any questions or comments for the Carpenter Firm.
All right.
You're good.
I'm good. Okay. So just sort of following up on the hourly rate issue, we have not generally needed that service in the past, but I'm not sure about the future. I would anticipate, just for my fellow board members, our intergovernmental agreement with Metro expires in June, so that's something that I would think we will incur legal fees on an hourly basis to renegotiate and define roles at that point, because we will, if we don't do that by the end of June, we kind of lose our connection with Metro. One thing that I think about a lot as a former card-carrying member of NABL who was at a big firm where there were potential conflicts of interest all the time is what are those conflicts of interest, and what would we as a board do if there were one? It sounds to me like most of your work is representing governments, so there aren't as many opportunities for conflict, but I guess just my real question is how many private developers and companies are y'all representing in these deals that might prove to be a conflict?
Well, as you mentioned, our base is governmental, quasi-governmental, and broker-dealers. We do not represent developers, and we do not do any litigation. We are 100% transactional. So we have not run into any conflicts. The question came up during the committee about our disclosure council work with Metro government and how that may be a conflict. And in thinking about it, we don't think there's a conflict at all. As a matter of fact, we think it's a benefit because we're able to coordinate our efforts. We know what's coming down the pike. We can interface with the elected officials. We know what their initiatives are and so forth. So we think that is a benefit. The other point that I mentioned is that over my career, I served on the Tennessee Board of Professional Responsibility, which is our ethical and professional responsibility board in the state of Tennessee. I was appointed by the Tennessee Supreme Court. I served on the board 6 years. The last 3 years of my tenure, I served as chairman of the board. And we actually forged the current professional responsibility standards in the state of Tennessee. So we're really focused on ethics. If something came up that was a potential conflict, we would discuss that with the board, take appropriate steps to ensure that there was no issue with professional responsibility on any of the parties involved in the transaction.
Anything else? All right, thank you, Vice Chair Segal. So a couple of, first of all, thank you all, and I thank my colleagues for their questions, and I won't have too many today. But certainly, one of the items that this board has discussed, and we're starting going to spend more time on it, is looking at our overall structure of fees holistically and not in a vacuum. And as we discussed in the committee meeting, one of those items that we'd be looking at as part of that is for bond, is our bond fee, certainly. And we have, over the last several years, had several projects come before us. So, if we want those kind of projects to continue to come before the board, we need to get something in place. But certainly understand, too, that for whatever project, whether it's a developer for an affordable housing project or a developer for a different private project or a different not-for-profit agency, we can't pick and choose who, the fees are the fees for everyone under that statute. So part of that, and I've shared to this board, and it just kind of goes along with timing, certainly all those decisions are board decisions. Those decisions are made as a group by this board. But I certainly, as chair, would welcome feedback, and certainly based on the breadth of knowledge, certainly recommendations or just what you're seeing in the market as this board goes through that. And specifically in your case, that would be related to our fees on Issuance Counsel, but also even our application. Are there different questions that this board would like to know about as we're looking at those items, and what are you seeing as well? In that capacity, if we wanted you to help us with that, how do you feel you could partner with us as we embark on that here in the very near future? I'll let you speak to that, and then I'll ask one more question.
Absolutely. That is right up our alley. We actually are helping one of our, the Health and Ed Board right now revise the pilot application, the bond application, their policies and procedures. That is, like I said, right up our alley. That is something that we are very, very focused on. That is very important. That is how an IDB or any instrumentality maintains itself. So we do want to make sure that the great work that you all do, that you're able to not only sustain yourself, but to thrive and be able to perpetuate your work and impact throughout the community here in Nashville.
Mm-hmm. And part of that, too, are annual issuer and administrative fees. That is a part of all of the bond financing. So each year, based on the par amount of the bonds outstanding, there is a fee that is paid to the Health Ed Board and most conduit issuers. And I think that's a standard practice in this industry, because there has to be ongoing fees and finances so that you can fulfill your duty as an issuer. There are many post-issuance activities and requirements that come up. And, from a bondholder standpoint, from a regulatory standpoint, they have random audits that the IRS will do from time to time. You have to have the staff. You have to have people that are available to respond to those sort of inquiries. And there are different refunding, refinance opportunities that come up. And as an issuer, if a bondholder has a question, the first place they'll go to is the issuer. Whether you're a conduit issuer or not, most of those responsibilities are assigned to the trustee at the closing, but there are some reserved rights and so forth that the issuer is responsible for. So to finish what my partner mentioned, we would be very valuable to this IDB in bringing you up to speed with what the current practices are in the industry and position yourself, in a way that you could continue to be successful as you go forward.
Yep, thank you for that. And to that point, so until we had that structure in place, if on behalf of the board, if I were to ask you, hey, we want to have a special meeting, you to come specifically talk to us about that, or a couple meetings to help us do that, to get that set up, would you be okay with, or would you be agreeable to not charging this board any hourly fees, with the understanding that if you represent us at Issuers Counsel, you'll be paid should bond deals come before this board, whether they're approved or not. You would work that out with bond counsel to obtain fees, at least, let's say, for 6 months to a year until we really got everything rolling where we're getting these fees in. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, my thoughts are, I see why you're chairman. So you're the arm twister in the group. Well, just on a serious note, the answer is yes. As I mentioned, this is the focus of our practice, and we do well with our practice because we do significant service to our clients, so that being in a situation where now you're starting over with new counsel and you want to update your policies and procedures and you want to make yourself more competitive so that you can deliver the valuable services based on the mission, we certainly would want to be a part of that, and we're not going to let fees interfere with or deferred fees or however we agree to move forward. We won't allow that to stop us from being an integral part of this team.
All right, thank you for that. And then last question, so if you all are based in Memphis, but you have, is it a satellite office here in Nashville? Is
Yes.
that right? And you said you all are here, aside from today, like in March, how often were you all in Nashville?
Came about 2 times. This is our 3rd time, so.
Okay.
So we come about 2 times a month at least.
So what would you say if our previous council's local, based here, and so what do you say if someone thinks, hey, there's a lot of value in having someone here all the time? Obviously, you have a satellite office here, so you do come to Nashville, but it's different than living here constantly. How much of an issue do you think that is, and how much of a factor do you think you all not being local plays into your ability to successfully represent this board as Issuers Counsel to the best, to the highest possible value?
I'll not speak for both of us in this regard. I don't think it has any effect on the value that we would give to the IDB. We're very available. I mean, we do live in Memphis, but it's only 3 hours away. We can be here as needed, as much as possible. Like I said, we already have relationships. We have a dwelling place here in Nashville, so it's relatively easy for us to navigate throughout, back and forth to Nashville and Memphis. And the great thing about, this pandemic, probably the only great thing is the use and the increased use of electronics. So, we're available through email, phone. Like I said, we need to be here in person. We will happily do so at the discretion and desire of the board.
All right.
And I'll just supplement that by saying, in this area of practice, most of the work is done remotely anyway. I mean, even with closings, it's over the last couple of years, we have not had even an in-person closings, let alone meetings. And when there needs to be an appearance before an elected body or so forth, they prefer a Zoom platform or some other sort of participation. But that's not going to be an issue for us. And as I mentioned, one of the major engagements is with Metro Nashville, and they're very active in so many ways. So we are always here and available, so that will not be an impediment. And I would wager to say that the board members would never know the difference of where we are, because we'll be here to accommodate the needs as required.
Well, thank you. That's all the questions I had. Josh, I do have one question for you, just because this was brought up and certainly in the responses. From your legal perspective, is there any conflict of interest should this firm be selected? Is there any conflict of interest should this firm be selected to represent the IDB as Issuers Counsel and their work, the general work that they do for Metro?
I mean, I think the short answer is no. I mean, obviously, that's got to be a case-by-case basis.
Sure.
But, I mean, them doing work as disclosure counsel for Metro, essentially there are ongoing disclosure obligations for any of the finances that Metro does, and they do the work for that. I cannot immediately see how that would be a conflict with any of the issuances that this board does, but right now, I would say no. But
But there could be a case, sure, yeah. Absolutely. Okay. Well, thank you all for coming before the board today. We, again, really appreciate you taking the time to do the responses, obviously interacting with the committee, and then certainly coming before our board today. So we really appreciate your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, let's take a 2-minute just stretch recess here before we go to the next firm. All right, thank you to my board. We'll go ahead and reconvene the meeting, and we do have a representative from Owings, Wilson, and Coleman. If you'll come before us, introduce yourself, take some time to tell us about your firm. And again, we thank you for being here in person, and I will turn it over to my board members for any questions that they may have. So thank you. And just, yep, you're good to go.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the Industrial Development Board. My name is Doug Overby. I'm here today on behalf of Owings, Wilson, and Coleman, and consider it a privilege to be with you today, along with the Carpenter Firm and the Waller Firm. And I know these are all quality firms, so whatever this board chooses, you will be well represented. I am here on behalf of Owings, Wilson, and Coleman. Owings, Wilson, and Coleman is the successor to a firm that went by the name of Robertson Overby that was created in 1982. I was the senior partner in the firm until 2017, after being appointed and confirmed by the United States Senate to be the United States Attorney for the Eastern District of Tennessee, which under Department of Justice rules required me to withdraw from the law firm, and also required the firm to no longer use my name in the firm name. So the firm continued under Owings, Wilson, and Coleman, and when my term came to an end about this time last year, they asked me to rejoin the firm, which I'm happy to do in the position of counsel position, because it's a great group of people to be associated with and to work with. The partners in the firm are John Owings, Shelley Wilson, Stephanie Coleman, and Felicia Colson. There are 10 lawyers in the firm. Like the Carpenter Firm alluded to, we consider ourselves a boutique firm. We handle a whole range of matters. I like to think of us as handling matters just like the large multi-city, multi-state firms, but we intentionally stay small, and we think that gives us additional flexibility to focus on and concentrate on our clients. Since the formation of our law firm in 1982, we have been actively engaged in public finance. Over those 40 years, we have been bond counsel for 29 counties in the state of Tennessee, including one county, Dutchess County in New York, and we have been involved in bond financings in 14 cities in Tennessee, and one outside of Tennessee, Savannah, Georgia. We have worked with industrial development boards, health, ed, and housing boards, public building authorities, and solid waste authorities, also throughout Tennessee, including some years ago serving as co-underwriters counsel for the Industrial Development Board of Davidson County. We have great familiarity with working with conduit entities like Metro Nashville Davidson County Industrial Development Board. We have been involved in all types of public financings and bond issues. Much of our early work was in regard to when student loans came about. Much of our work was involved in educational student loan bond issues, a couple of issues in $650 million issues, and various general obligation and revenue bond issues over the years. Much of our work of late has really been in the role of bond counsel as opposed to issuers counsel. But I think as you heard back, I guess it was your December meeting, I've watched some of your meetings of late when Mr. Took explained that bond counsel represents the transaction, which means really the bond counsel is overseeing all of the work of the various attorneys involved as underwriters counsel, issuers counsel. So the work of bond counsel really encompasses to the extent the oversight of the transaction and all the constituent parts that go into putting the transaction together. So I say that only to say I think it gives good stead to our firm to serve not in the role of bond counsel, but also the role of issuers counsel, because as bond counsel, you got to know what everyone else is doing and what their opinions need to say in order to make the issue tax exempt and be acceptable to the underwriters and the credit agencies and all that goes into that. I think part of your initial question, Mr. Chairman, was what attracted you to respond, and I think
thank you.
One thing, as you noted back in December, at your December meeting, is you wanted to cast a wide net. So I think you did cast that wide net, and we were a bit surprised to receive one of the RFQs. I don't know how wide your net was, but here today it seems like it went from one end of the state to the other. But having received it, we looked at it, we discussed it, we talked about it. Can we provide this service? We're a law firm in Knoxville, Tennessee, but can we provide the service to the Industrial Development Board of Metro? And we made the decision that, yes, we can. We can provide this service as issuers counsel, and we want to provide the service as issuers counsel. And so that's why we responded. And I can tell you this, Mr. Chairman and members of the board, after watching your December meeting and your February meeting and learning more about the board, and that to some extent this is, to say a new day may be overstatement, maybe a turning of the page. Mr. Thomas has taken over from Margaret. Courtney is relatively new, and I watched the presentation he made. I guess that was your February meeting, and your timeline stuck with me of 120 days to perhaps nine months. So to me, it looks like an exciting time to render legal services to this board, to be engaged. Again, it seems like maybe a turning of a page. You want to get into looking at new things. The vice chairman raised some issues about the fees that are charged and that sort of thing. So I think for a firm like ours who considers itself dynamic and flexible and aggressive, it would be a good time for us to be engaged with this board as you look to perhaps expand your wings, redo some of your regulations and your fee structures. And so I find that very attractive and very exciting.
Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And again, thank you for coming today in person. And certainly thank you for, I don't know if you got your popcorn ready for our meetings, but that's good to know that you took the time to take a look at those too. So anyway, thank you for that. With that, I think that's a good introduction on your firm. So I'll turn it over to my colleagues for any questions and comments. I'll start to my right with Board Member Cordova first. Any questions or comments for the Owings firm?
Yep, I think I want to steal somebody else's question from the last time around. Can you elaborate a little bit more on, you're based in Knoxville, the firm's based in Knoxville, how engaged you'd be being down here in Nashville, us being based here? Could you elaborate?
I do not think that would present any difficulties. As I think I joked with the committee the other evening that I made this trip weekly for 17 years as a member of the General Assembly. My car knows the route by heart, and sometimes people say, "Where are you?" And I'll say, "I'm not quite sure. I know I'm on Interstate 40 somewhere, either headed to Nashville or headed back home to Maryville." I agree with what I believe Mr. Carpenter, the son, said is one thing that COVID has taught us is that we can do business by teleconference. And certainly during the time I was in the U.S. Attorney's Office, which is when COVID stopped everything and we had to send people home, we did a whole lot of business by teleconference, including sentencings and arraignments and those sorts of things. I'm old school. I don't think that's as good as meeting in person. So it was a learning experience for me. At that same time, I was on a search committee for our church to find a new pastor. We did that by Zoom, which worked. Anyway, we have learned that we can do business by Zoom. I like to do business in person. Certainly, in response to other questions, we would be here for board meetings. In fact, that's something I encourage. I've encouraged clients for 43 years to invite their lawyer to their board meetings because I think it helps you stay in touch, helps you feel the pulse. So I don't think it would be an impediment. And in fact, I think in some ways it would be a benefit in that I don't perceive that we would have conflicts developing. Yes, we are in the work of public finance, but it's mainly in East Tennessee. It's mainly with public entities in East Tennessee. So I think that's an advantage we have, quite frankly, is that I think we minimize the opportunities for conflicts.
Thank you. I'm all good.
All right. Thank you, Board Member Cordova. Board Member Forster?
Yes, and maybe this is a question for our legal counsel, but I was under the impression that we weren't allowed to meet electronically, that we have to meet in person. So it's come up several times now about the flexibility of Zoom, but I wasn't aware that we were awarded that flexibility.
Yes, so by our statute, and we were able to meet, we were only meeting electronically because the governor, passed that during COVID, and so that's why we were able to. But once that ended, we started meeting again in person. So you are correct on that. Unless something like that were to happen, this board would be meeting in person. So if we want Issuers Counsel, they would be coming in
Right.
person.
So you would have to come, I take it, to
Well,
our meetings.
If I can clarify, so
Yeah.
as a body, when you guys meet, you have to be in person. Now, I don't want to speak for them, but I mean, they certainly could appear electronically. They don't necessarily need to be here in person, but for you guys to conduct business, you all have to be in the same place and have a quorum to be able to do that.
Okay, so are we set up for them to Zoom in with us here present? I mean, we'd have to make accommodations for that?
I wouldn't be able to comment on that because I don't know. But
Yeah, but I would say, as chair, my preference would be whoever we choose. Not that they have to come to every single meeting, but certainly if there's a bond matter that's coming for the board, I would expect whatever firm we choose to, that would be my expectation as chair. I'm not speaking for other board members, but my expectation is they would be here in person for that matter.
Okay. The only other observation.
Ms. Forrester, could I clarify, please?
Yes, certainly.
Because I may have been vague about that, and I didn't mean to. I think for meetings, we would want to be here in person. I think what I was trying to tell in answer to Mr. Cordova's question is the work of putting the deal together can be, when you're dealing with the issuer, the borrower, the funder, that can be done remotely. I'm sorry if I made, I was not, my intent was to say that that I think it's important to be at board meetings in person.
Okay, thank you. And the only other thing that kind of crossed my mind about duties is, we voted as a board last year, I believe, where we authorized Bob to conduct the TEFRA meetings separately from our board meetings.
Yes, that was last year.
So that's an additional duty that we would need our bond counsel to do, correct?
Yes, and anytime we would have those TEFRA, anytime the bond deals would come up, there has to be a TEFRA hearing. And to my understanding, and the reason we did it that way was just in the interest of time to do that. So yes, that would be part of it. But yeah, yes. So if your question, I guess, is do that.
Right, so is that part of hourly fees then too? Because I think Mr. Took didn't charge us for that.
I think that would be part of your fee as issuer's counsel that comes out of the proceeds of the bond issue.
Thank you. That's it.
Yep, great question. Thank you. All right. Board Member Davis, any questions or comments?
No, I mean, again, sounds like one thing I didn't catch, and you may have said this, the last firm, they did mention like multiple different types of bonds. I mean, since you're also a boutique firm, do you kind of have sort of the full breadth of, I guess, experience on working with anything that could possibly come our way?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, seems great presentation overall. Thank you.
All right. Board Member Hannah.
Thank you for the presentation, and it does sound like also very good experience, and I appreciate you traveling here from Knoxville. I'll go to my question to the other group as well. What are your hourly rates that you charge that would be outside of the issuer's fee? And would there be any expenses related to traveling, including charging your hourly fee for travel to our meetings in Nashville?
Taking the last first, no, there would not be an hourly rate charge for traveling to meetings to be present to do our job. No, and either an hourly rate or mileage. The other part of your question, and I think, Mr. Chairman, when we got into this a little bit in the committee, and I think mainly we were talking about services rendered as issuers counsel for issues, which, as I stated to Ms. Forrester, would come out of the issue. I think if we were, and I know you're represented currently by Metro's Law Director's Office, I would think if there were some special task, I think we would want to talk with the chairman about that, whether it falls squarely within the issue or whether it is a special task that that's really outside of an issue. And I think that would be something we would discuss on a case-by-case basis. I don't know about having a blanket approach to that. Our typical hourly rates go from $250 to $400. I felt akin to Mr. Carpenter Sr. He said he'd practiced 43 years. So have I. And serving as U.S. Attorney, my hourly rate is $400 an hour. It goes down from there depending on years of service. I hope that is clear enough. We do many things on an hourly rate. That's what many clients want. Over the course of my practice, especially for long-term clients, we have converted to a monthly fixed retainer. It is some risk on behalf of the law firm because you don't know how much work is going to come up at any given time. On the other hand, it allows clients to budget. As they're preparing their budget, they know what their legal fees are for the coming year. And for long-term clients, we take a historical view of that, look at the past 10 years or 5 years and base it on that. But it's something I have found that clients really, really like because they're able to budget their legal expenses for the coming year. Again, that's something Mr. Tuke represented this body for 13 years, I believe, from longer than that, from 2009 to 2022. That's something we might think about in the future if there were a lot of special projects coming up or if you don't renew the intergovernmental agreement. That's something that's within this board's purview and this board's control.
Thank you.
Anything else? All right. Vice Chair Segal.
Hi, welcome. My question is the same as my last question, which is when you think about conflicts that you might have, how much of your firm's work is working for private companies, developers, larger entities that might end up before the board and could pose a conflict?
I guess it's within the range of possibility, but I'm having a hard time coming up with an example because currently a lot of our work is for cities and counties, utility districts in East Tennessee. Utility districts can issue their own bonds, cities can issue their own bonds, counties can issue their own bonds. We do represent what I think of as one of the premier continuing care retirement communities in East Tennessee. That's gone through the Blount County Health and Ed Board. The other conduit lender that we've worked with over the years is the Sevier County Public Building Authority. And again, we might have a conflict, but I think it's remote. And again, I think that's what a unique perspective we would bring is that the likelihood of a conflict of interest would be remote.
Thank you, Vice Chair Segal. So my colleagues have asked some great questions. A couple items, if you could. So you touched on it, but just want to get some, if you could go into greater detail on it. So in your response, in your firm's response, it looks like, and you mentioned this as well, a lot of your work has been for governments on the bond deal. So if you could, obviously, we're a quasi-governmental agency, but if you could specifically talk about your work representing specifically boards like this, because again, in your response, it was a lot of work for governments and certainly a lot of bond experience, but if you could specifically talk about that, that would be great, thank you.
Yes, I think the request for proposals ask for the issues we've done within the last 3 years, and I don't know
Yep.
that there was a conduit issuer mentioned. But I can tell you, out of the over 11 billion worth of public financings on this list, which is the history, we have been engaged by various industrial development boards, health and ed boards, public building authorities, and solid waste authorities. Most recently, the Sevier County Public Building Authority. And second part of that response, Mr. Chairman, to your question would be, again, as bond counsel, your work, you're not doing the work of the issuer's counsel, but you're making sure that work gets done, and the opinion letter from issuer's counsel meets all the requirements. So in my mind, being bond counsel encompasses the full range of services of getting public finance issue to closure and being accepted by the rating agencies.
Thank you. And specifically, you talked about, your fees would come out of bond that this board would issue, obviously would also have to be approved by the board. What is your typical fee structure in those types of deals? Is it a set percentage, or what is that with the other party?
There are some guidelines. These days you can find almost anything on the World Wide Web. There are some guidelines, particularly for bond counsel, that typically start at $1 million and go up to $20 million, and then rather than being on a grid, you look at how much is over $20 million, and then it's a certain percent per $1,000 worth of bonds. That's for bond counsel. Typically, and this may be the vice chairman's experience as well, but typically, like for issuer's counsel, the borrower's counsel, the underwriter's counsel, those are really negotiated along with bond counsel and the financial advisor. I would say for a $40 million issue, and I think you have a lot of, maybe your experience has been in that $40 to $50 million range, if I'm recalling correctly. Those fees seem to be for issuer's counsel, at least in East Tennessee, seem to be in the range $7,000, $8,000, $9,000. But typically those are worked out in the deal to the best interest of the client and the issuing body.
And in your experience, were you paid, or would you, in your experience, let me go here, in your experience, have you been paid that fee when you have represented as issuer's counsel, regardless of whether or not the bond was issued?
The answer to your question is no. To us, it's like a contingency fee. If the matter doesn't close, you don't get paid. I did think I mentioned to you, because the issuer often, if we should be fortunate to be your issuer's counsel, and over the course of 6 months, you as a body don't close for whatever reason, we might want to talk about that.
Okay.
Because obviously there's a problem somewhere, either the type of applications we're getting or some reason they're not closing. But just taking things as they normally go without any extenuating circumstances, if the bond issue does not close, we would not be paid.
Thank you. And obviously your firm is based in Knoxville. You mentioned you do travel. How much work have you done here locally? Are there any deals you've done here in the last couple of years your firm has done related to bonds, whether that be as bond counsel or issuer's counsel, specifically here in the greater Nashville area over the last several years?
No, I don't think so. I would have to look back, although I know over the years we have done business for Cumberland County, for Lebanon. We've done issues from Haywood County in the west to Johnson County on the North Carolina-Virginia border. So we have served as either bond counsel, underwriters counsel, issuers counsel in about 30% of Tennessee's counties, ranging from West Tennessee to East Tennessee, Upper East Tennessee.
All right. Well, thank you. I greatly appreciate your time today, and thank you for, again, responding, taking the time to respond, and certainly your time in this process, and greatly appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Oh, yeah, you go ahead if there's any last thing you want to say to the board.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. All right, this time we'll do a quick 2-minute just stretch break before we have our final firm come before us today. About your firm, who will be serving us, should you be selected, and why you think your firm would be a great fit, and then I'll turn it over to our board with any questions.
Well, thank you for inviting me here. I am Alex Buchanan, and I've been with the Waller Law Firm since 1978, so a long time with one law firm. Waller is based in Nashville. We have about 250 lawyers in Nashville. We have offices also in Chattanooga. We have a small office in Memphis and offices in Birmingham and Austin, Texas. So I don't look at the firm's size as particularly an asset. We are growing, but rather than emphasizing the size, I think what I want to convey to this board is that the reason that we have growth is that we are service-oriented. We try very, very hard to do what our clients want. So it's our commitment to bringing full service to every engagement that we have is what I think does separate Waller from the other firms that you have before you today. We are a full service firm, and I do most of the bond work in the firm. You've seen my engagements in the last couple of years. They involve representing cities and counties and utility districts as bond counsel. As trustees counsel, I've been engaged in a wealth of engagements across the state where I think that engagement is fairly similar to representing the board itself, in the sense that it typically is bond counsel that drives a transaction, and the trustees counsel or counsel to the industrial board is chief concern is to get the documents right and to make sure that they're legal and that they don't involve risk to the parties that whoever you're representing, doesn't undertake to become engaged in a risk that it doesn't want to undertake. So anyway, I think those are representatives of the types of bond deals that I've done that would certainly, I think, gives me the experience to do this job and do it very well. Trying to think what else was that I might tell you that would be a little bit different. I'm based here in Nashville. I certainly would expect to be at all meetings of the board, and would welcome the opportunity to work with you to make sure that you understand what is going on with these bond deals. When you just have a traditional IDB financing that's a conduit issuer for a manufacturing facility, truthfully, there's not much skin in the game by the industrial board. When you're talking about TIF financings, pilot agreements, different animals involved, and there's some things legislatively that are getting ready to happen that I think make the industrial board a perhaps more likely venue for additional bond financing for PACER loans or other kinds of loans that may get adopted that I would enjoy working with you, and I hope you would enjoy working with me if I were selected.
All right, well, thank you for coming. I will turn it over to my colleagues then for any questions that they may have. I will start here to my left. Board Member Davis.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you being here, and definitely a known quantity with Waller and a fan over the years. My experience had been with, I guess I'll ask this just because I feel like it was brought up or whatever, with conflicts. Would there be any conflicts, I guess, with Waller? Because my experience from Counsel was, of course, our mutual friend, probably James Weaver, lobbying for things and all that kind of stuff. With the kind of things we get here, and I just have no idea of the answer to this, but would there be any conflicts, I guess, with that, or things that you'd have to step away from on behalf of Waller?
Yeah, we talked about it certainly internally because we do developer work, and it's very important to the firm. And while the firm very much supports my efforts to represent the industrial board, the feeling was that because of at least the perception that could be of a conflict, that where we are engaged as a developer that is either in the process of going before the board or plans to go before the board, that we would not represent or wouldn't be issuers counsel in that type of situation. I put in my response that as a possible solution, perhaps Metro could fill that void in those circumstances. There may be other ways that other firms are handling this that I'm not aware of. I know that Adams Reese and the Health and Ed Board, I know they from time to time have got conflicts. I don't know how they handle it truthfully. So there may be other ways to handle it other than a withdrawal, but certainly our expectation is that on the development work, we would not be issuers counsel, unless somebody comes up with an idea of how we can do it, and we would certainly be glad to discuss it and make sure, obviously we have to work from both the industrial board standpoint and from the developer that we might represent.
Sure. And yeah, I mean, a super pro is that you're based here and, you're like a big Nashville firm and all that kind of stuff. Not thinking through what may be coming to us. Like I know like the East Bank thing, I don't know if we're getting that or if that's all going to be done at Counsel, but like James Weaver represents the Titans. So like it would be kind of we couldn't probably work together in that situation, but just something to think about. But yeah, I love the fact that you've got the experience, you're local, you're Waller, of course, it's a known quantity. So there's a lot of pros. That was just my one thought because having worked with you so much at Counsel and on, ECD type stuff. So cool. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's stay on that because that came up in our committee meetings as well. So just to clarify, Alex, in the event that there was a conflict where your firm was representing a developer, in those instances, your firm would represent the developer and not the IDB. And it sounds like just due to the amount of business that your firm does with developers is such a huge part of your business. Is that correct?
I think that's what, I mean, our developer work is it's a pretty big engagement. It involves lots and lots of time and energies. And so the feeling was we need to figure out a way, if there is a way, to do it, and I think the solution that we envision would be that we just wouldn't be able to represent the industrial board under those circumstances, and that it could either retain additional counsel outside of Metro Legal, or it could go to Metro Legal, assuming Metro Legal is willing to do that. But we would anticipate still representing the developer if it needed to come before the industrial board. And we would hope that my representation of the board wouldn't.
That was my next question. Then, kind of going in another direction than we really want to go to. But in that case, because let's say your firm was selected to represent the board on Issuers Counsel, would you anticipate any conflict of interest, even if you said, hey, all right, we're not going to represent the IDB specifically on this particular matter. You have represented the board, or you really are Issuers Counsel. So if you had a project with a developer that came before the Industrial Development Board, even though your firm would not represent the board as Issuers Counsel, because of your work with us, would you anticipate there being any conflicts of interest there, even representing a developer and coming to our board?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Conflict of interest they're often hard questions to answer. It has mainly to do whether people's interests are compromised, and I certainly think if the industrial board has Metro Legal to represent it, it would not have its interests compromised. And if I'm representing the industrial board on other deals that other developers are bringing to the board, I'm going to use every bit of knowledge that my firm has and that I have about what developers are trying to do. So hopefully the industrial board will have gained from whatever experience I bring to the table, and can use that to negotiate with our clients. It's just the way the knowledge is power, and if you have special knowledge, it's helpful. If you don't have the knowledge, you may not get, as good a representation as you otherwise could or have gotten, good a result as you could have otherwise gotten.
Sure. Thank you for that. And let's go back to the initial conflict. And it's hard to determine because, we don't know what developers or which developers are doing projects right now that are going to come before this body. So, but it could happen, it sounds like, just due to the amount of development work that your firm does. And I think, was your firm involved in all with Century Farms?
Yes.
Okay. So that would be an example of one where you would not represent the IDB as Issuers Counsel, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. In the event that happened, let's say, and let's go with the premise that the board would prefer not to have Metro Legal represent us as Issuers Counsel just because that's not their role. And let's also go with the premise that maybe Metro and Metro Legal don't feel comfortable specifically on a new deal serving as Issuers Counsel. That's why we're searching for Issuers Counsel now. That's why we're going through this process. If we go with that premise, if there was something that came up with the developer, and that developer, your client, want to come before this board for a bond deal, how much lead time would there be so that this board, if it's not Metro Legal, let's say, would be able to find a suitable option to certainly advise this board as Issuers Counsel correctly, legally, and accurately so that this board could make the best decision, but certainly so that the developer that's coming before us meets the time frame of their project as well. What kind of lead time would you anticipate in that type of scenario?
I don't know that I can answer that definitively.
Okay.
But I would hope that, that months, meaning 2 months, before appearing possibly appearing before the board, or at least 1 month, that would be able to give the board some notice that there's a potential conflict on the horizon. I don't think it would be 6 months or something like that.
Sure.
It's usually, when we get involved, the developers are very frothy in trying to get their deals done, so that it moves pretty quickly.
Okay. Yeah, and I appreciate you giving that, again, just as an estimate, because certainly from our standpoint as chair, and certainly for our board overall, we would certainly in that situation need to make some accommodations and make some changes. And so I certainly want us to be able to do that, because in that case, if a developer wants to come before us, say in 3 weeks, let's say, I don't know that we can find a solution in 3 weeks. And personally, I don't feel comfortable putting this board in a position where, if that were to happen, where we feel rushed, to do something. Like, we need to go through the process and do it the right way. So, okay. That's all I had on that. So yeah, go ahead.
Just while we're on conflicts.
Sure. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I like to keep topics together, and so sometimes I jump in because I don't want to have like a disjointed discussion. And this is probably a question for Josh, but I know in the past, Bob has also, I think, reviewed like TIF agreements and pilot agreements and employee grant agreements, but Metro Legal does as well. What is your understanding of how that's currently siloed?
So I think my understanding is that generally your issuer's counsel was related just to the bond deals part of it, and so the TIF, the pilots. Am I answering your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
He nodded.
So yes, I think the TIF and pilots were things that were sort of more in what Metro Legal was doing. I think just over the years, things got involved where Bob was doing those things.
Okay.
But Margaret was also reviewing them as well, so there was basically both.
Okay, no, that's fine. That was what I thought was probably the answer, but when we think about conflicts, suddenly the conflicts grow even bigger if we're looking at all those, right? Because you're looking at every deal that comes through here and every company in town, and that, I think, changes the scope a little bit of the discussion. But then I guess the other question I just have about conflicts is, like, one of the great things about your firm is y'all are so involved in the community. You're involved with our nonprofits. You are involved on various boards of trustees of educational institutions in town. And I guess my question would be, when we're looking at doing sort of private deals like what came before us last month, what sort of process would be in place to make sure that you're not inadvertently working on a deal where it turns out one of your partners is on the board of trustees or directors for that institution?
Well, being a big firm certainly has a disadvantage of there, way too many people there for me to keep up with what everybody's working on. But I mean, we work hard to avoid conflicts of interest. And so, I mean, when somebody thinks about opening a file, there's a process that goes on that before the files are open, there's a good deal of sort of behind-the-scenes discussion that takes place to see whether this is, likely to result in a conflict of interest that we can't take. And, I don't think of it, certainly with the examples of we'll say, schools or that kind of thing, that there's a likelihood of a conflict of interest between this board and the school financing that might be requested.
Thank you, Chair Segal. Go to Board Member Hannah.
Thank you for joining us today and for the presentation. A couple of questions. One, as I've asked the other teams, I'd like to know what your hourly rate is and understand what the fee structure would be. And one that I probably should have asked the other groups as well, and I just don't know the answer to this, is is the percentage that issuer counsel charges, is that consistent, or is that something that is negotiated between the parties and it is done on a deal-by-deal basis, or would we understand it would always be a flat X percent?
Yeah. My hourly rate is $550 an hour. And on public finance deals, where I'm bond counsel, I don't charge by the hour. I quote a fee at the beginning of the transaction, and that's what I charge. For this representation, what I proposed, and I was obviously putting it out there as for discussion, that coming to meetings, doing the sort of day-to-day operational and administrative kinds of duties, that I would do that without charging anything, and that the expectation is that to the extent that a developer deal gets done, you get paid for giving usually an opinion, and that somehow would compensate for the historical background work that you may have done. In terms of issuers' counsel fees, what I see is more negotiated than a straight percentage. It would be nice if everybody agreed to a certain percentage, but I don't see that happening. I just don't think that there is one for major metropolitan areas where there's a good deal of give and take on these things in terms of what people charge.
And who are you negotiating that with?
Ultimately, I mean, when it's a developer deal, that's who they can bow their back and go, no, that's just not in range of what we know is a reasonable fee. So it would typically be the developer.
Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Hannah. To that point, let's go there. And you can probably tell, for me, that's been a question. We talked about it in our committee, in the discussion with the committee, and certainly today you've heard me talk a lot about fees. And so going with the premise that you would be paid, should a bond be issued, you would be paid out of that. You're saying that there's not a set fee for that. It's kind of based on the transaction, which to me leaves a lot of wiggle room, a lot of, I don't know, it just depends on this deal that's $40 million, the fee is $10,000. On this deal that's $40 million, the fee is $18,000 without really a rhyme or reason. And I guess if the board is not paying for it, that's one thing, but let me tell you what I'm thinking about and where I'm going is, in those scenarios, because there's not, you're saying it's negotiated on a case-by-case basis, have you seen or would you foresee a scenario where, let's say, a developer wants to bring a project before this board? Doesn't mean this board will approve it, but they want to go through the process. And you are issuers counsel, so they're going to contact you, and let's say that you want your fee, and I'm just throwing out numbers, you want your fee to be $20,000 because you think that this is a more complicated deal, you're going to spend more time on it, and that developer for the affordable housing project says, no, we, for these types of stuff, this amount, we pay 10. You're like, no, I want 20. Ultimately, my concern would be as a board, would there, in that scenario, would you foresee a situation where that would cause this board not to hear a project, not to be brought before this board for us to even consider it because of the nebulous nature of these fees?
I think that's a possibility, but not a, I think in any deal that you've got to ultimately keep the people that are paying for the deal satisfied. And you do that by providing the work, and you provide a fee that's reasonable for the work provided. So, if the issuer counsel involved, time that would have equated, given my rates at $75,000, and given that it's issuers counsel work where typically, if you look at what Bob took, I mean, there's sort of a historic body of knowledge that's out there, what Bob charged over the last 5 years, 10, 15 years. I don't think you're going to see acceptance of a bigger fee unless there's a real change in sort of the way this board is charging. I don't think Bob charged $30,000, $40,000 for his opinions. I have the expectation of also keeping the opinion fees modest, but it obviously doesn't work for me if I'm spending $100,000 in time on it and I'm only getting $10,000. It may be that this board has different legal expectations than what I would anticipate. And I think I can do it and keep the fees modest, but things change. I mean,
sure.
All I can do is try it going forward, and if it's not working for me, you'll hear about it. And if it's not working for the developers because I'm charging $50,000 or $100,000, you'll hear about it.
Sure. Okay. And in your experience, have you been paid, or regardless of whether or not, or let me give you an example. Say you're representing this board as Issuers Counsel. You've reviewed the documents for us. Obviously, we want you at the meeting. You said you would come to the meeting, and you're answering questions, and you're saying, yeah, I'll give my blessing on the documents from a legal perspective. But this board decides, for whatever reason, we vote against it, and so the bond isn't issued. In those situations, historically, have you still been compensated from the bond counsel? And moving forward, would you expect to, or in those scenarios, if you're not compensated and expect to be, would you expect this board to then compensate you?
Yeah. Well, I think to begin with, certainly, I'm willing to take the work on the basis of the understanding that I'm only going to be paid when deals are actually completed, done, opinions are issued. Because I don't think this board has a big history of turning down or deals that don't get done. It happens occasionally,
sure,
not very often. So, I mean, again, if it turns out for every 6 deals we really look at and get involved with, 2 or 3 aren't getting done, that probably isn't going to work very well for me long term.
Sure. And this board will, that would be a conversation to have, Okay. All right. Well, thank you for that. Let me go here to my right. Board, any questions? All right. Board Member Forrester, Vice Chair Segal, any? All right. Well, Alex, we thank you so much. Or is there anything else that you want to share? I think we've got all the questions, so we thank you for your patience in going today. But if there's anything else you want to share with this board, please do.
Appreciate the opportunity to be here. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks,
sir. All right. Well, again, as I stated, not necessary for the board to vote today, and obviously for example, we had a member that had to leave early, but certainly I hope that we accomplished, and this was the goal today, was to give all of you an opportunity to ask the detailed questions that you felt were important to you, of the candidates. And just due to time, we won't spend a lot of time on it, but I would certainly be interested in my colleagues' general thoughts on, I guess, first question, do we feel out of the 3 candidates that we do have some candidates that meet the criteria of what we're looking for? Do we feel good with this crop of candidates? I guess would be my first question. I'll start here, over here.
Yeah, I don't know. Are we kind of going deeper into this next week, or is this like
wherever you want to go, wherever you want to go.
Okay. I felt we had 3 solid candidates. obviously, two were not local, which doesn't seem like it's going to be a huge hindrance, but that's worth discussing. And then, but I really did like the experience that all of them had. I think the one Waller thing may be the conflict thing, but, they are local. They're the local one. So, there's pros and cons on everybody, but I think we had 3 qualified candidates.
Awesome. So let me just ask you a question, if you don't mind, because you mentioned that, in your opinion, how important is the local? So we had one local firm, one firm that's Knoxville, the other firm's in Memphis that they have a satellite office here, but so they're here some more than probably the Knoxville firm, but not obviously not a local firm. How important is that to you personally as a board member?
It's not to me, it wouldn't be like a deal breaker. I don't know. I mean, I think we want we want bond experts and, people that can do the deals. So, maybe it isn't crazy to do someone outside of Nashville. It's not like we're shopping at a local business, kind of thing. It doesn't have to be that, but that's just, it's something I was kind of running through my mind, preferred, but if it doesn't fit in the right box, not necessarily like a deal breaker. So, I think the experience is also super important. Everybody kind of had good answers on the billing. They're only going to charge with deals, it seems like, and not just be issuing a bunch of hourly bills thrown at us. So it was good to get those public commitments.
They're recorded. They've been recorded.
Yes. That's on the record. So there may have been, a little bit of hedging, but also it's fair. Like if the vice chair brought up the contract renegotiation, if we give them that project, we should have them bill us. That'd be like, we don't need to dump projects on them too, in addition to, I think the meetings should be free, and then it's like, they get paid when they do deals, basically. And then, but if we have a special project, then we get billed, so that seems fair. But I think they're all solid, for sure.
Thank you. And this is take it wherever you want to go regarding this.
Okay, no, I would agree with what was just shared, and I do think it's most important that we have qualified candidates, and I think we do have some qualified options. I'd like to understand a little bit better the scope of their engagement and how that would relate to the fees, but I think we had some good discussion on that topic today.
Yep, absolutely. And I would say to the point, once this board was at the point of, hey, we want to move in a direction with a particular candidate, the next step would be for us to work on an engagement letter, which would come before the board, obviously. And I would also say, too, one thing to keep in mind is, what we're asking for specifically, one item that we need to have is issuers counsel specifically for these bond deals, for sure. But if 6 months, 9 months from now, a year from now, as this board continues to look at various opportunities consistent with our mission, it may be that we need to amend that, engagement letter at that time. So, thank you. Board Member Cordova, any initial comments?
No,
based on the candidates?
I think the other statements that were made are pretty in line with where I'm at, too. I think the first and foremost important thing is their qualifications, and as was said, they all seem qualified. And beyond that, my preference would be local, but, just so that we're all in the same boat together. If there's a local attorney that would do it, it kind of heightens that sort of, we're all in the same boat. We're all plugging in the right direction. So, but beyond that, I think we're in the right place.
Yep, for sure. Josh, let me ask you a quick question, and I certainly want to go to you all as well very quickly here. So one of the firms brought up conflict. And I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I am going to put you on the spot. So if we had a new deal coming before us, developers coming before us, Waller, and I'm just using them because they're the local firm, but it says they do a lot of developer work. Developer comes before, Waller says, look, due to the amount of developer work, as they stated, we would work on the developer in that instance. would you feel comfortable not only representing the board as like as our legal, just general counsel to the board, but also specifically as issuers counsel in that scenario?
No, it's a good question. I mean, as I sit here, I mean, I can't speak for the director of law as to whether we would expand our engagement, but, you know, this work is very specialized, and part of the reason why you guys are getting issuers counsel is because you want somebody who has that competency. I can tell you just personally, I don't have that.
Okay.
So I don't know if I would be able to provide those services to the board at this time. So that would be one factor. Whether there's someone else within Metro Legal that could do it, I don't know the answer to that. But that would be my concern. So I think it'd probably be unlikely, is the answer to your question, that Metro Legal will be able to do it.
To do that.
But I cannot say that definitively.
Okay.
Can I just speak from my experience a little bit here? It would, your government law department isn't typically set up to be bond counsel because they don't carry the necessary insurance to issue a bond opinion, which is a super specialized area of law and requires a super specialized type of insurance to issue. It comes with significant SEC liability, IRS filings that I would not anticipate, but I'm certainly happy for the legal department to tell me I'm wrong. I would not anticipate that any legal department in any government would want to take that on.
Yep. I appreciate you sharing that. Obviously, just something to consider as.
Yeah, I mean, that definitely brings a wrinkle. So now we know Metro cannot be backup. We'll probably will not play backup quarterback for us in the situation like Century Farms. Then we're scrambling for another lawyer. I guess just kind of thinking that through.
Well, which is why I asked the question.
Yeah.
You know, how much lead time? Because we certainly want to. If a developer wants to come before the board, I mean, that's what we're here for, but we certainly need to do our due diligence as well. And I guess part of that factor too, and we don't know, if you look at the last couple of years, I guess we've done 3 to 4 of these coming, you know, but as if interest rates continue to rise, does the fact of developers coming because of the tax exempt status really getting a lower interest rate, does that maybe mean we're going to start getting more of these?
As well as, I would just point out, any nonprofit or school in town for which a member of Waller serves in a fiduciary capacity. So as a board member, and I think that's something to consider. I mean, they're qualified and they're local, but
no,
it's a lot. That's
a good point as well. Board Member Forster, and you can take it anywhere, general, or if you want to be specific.
No, I was impressed by all three. All three I thought were great candidates. And it was just interesting how my idea of them evolved from just reading, their proposals and then actually hearing them talk. But for me, Waller is a premier firm, but doesn't seem well suited for us because of the conflicts of interest. I mean, we wouldn't want to get into all that. They're going to represent anybody that's big. And for us to get involved with them and then have to find a replacement just seems onerous to me. I have to say I enjoyed Mr. Overby from Knoxville.
Sure.
He had done his research on us. He knew all our names. He had watched the videos. But, that doesn't mean that he's the best fit for us either. And I keep going back on our vision. I think that collectively we have evolved too in the last few years as a board, and that, and that was a good point that they made, that we've got a lot of turnover and the people are support.
Yep. And new board members too.
Right. And lots of things are new on the horizon. And I think that we all have a particular focus on affordable housing and doing the right deals and getting new fee structures and becoming just more involved and more pertinent to what's going on in Nashville today. That said, when I go back and I read the Carpenter's resume, I mean, they have got deep experience in affordable housing. They've spent 20 years as general counsel for the Memphis Health and Education Housing Board. I just think that they might serve as a huge resource to us. They've been doing this business that we're particularly interested in for decades. And Memphis, according to Courtney's presentation, is like light years ahead of us as far as fees and structure, and I'm sure that they're intimately familiar with all that and just seem to be a big resource to us. And and they do maintain an office here and obviously would be actively involved. So and I just thought they were a big plus. And that was my take on it.
Get right into it. No, I appreciate your comments, and I won't, just because I was on the committee, and I won't go into too much detail today, but so I'll just speak in general. I think some of the points that you bring up, it's kind of interesting. Some of the questions that I had and our committee members had, you didn't know what questions we asked because you were not in the meeting, but it was interesting to hear some of the same themes came up. And that was one of them, aside from fees, because that came up a lot, certainly. But one of them with Waller was the conflict piece, for sure. Doesn't mean they're not qualified. It doesn't mean this board could not choose them. But the other question, regardless, and the other question for this board is in the case of if Josh had said today, sure, I feel comfortable, representing you all as Issuers Counsel. The other piece of it is, do we feel, no disrespect to Josh, and Josh knows I love him, but do we feel comfortable, like, if this is the whole reason why we're getting Issuers Counsel? And the only downside, I think, to me is if this board decides that's the route we want to go, I would certainly take it upon myself and to think through a contingency plan that we would already have in place, just again, due to the specialized nature of this field. It's not just, all right, snap your fingers. We can get another counsel to represent us in those conflicts. So, that was something that was brought up as well. And certainly, and again, it depends on what matters to the board. But, certainly it mattered, as I thought about the question, was how much experience for all the firms have they done specifically with boards similar to ours, working with volunteers, working with boards like ours that are quasi-governmental, boards similar to ours. And although there's tons of different things, I thought that was at least something that the board should consider, how important is that fact to us. So anyway, but thank you. I appreciate your comments. Vice Chair Segal, any initial comments on the candidates?
Yeah, I would just say they all seem extremely well qualified,
yep.
And I'm relieved that we have really qualified candidates because it's an important role. And the only thing I would add, just based on my experience, which was practicing in this area in the state of Alabama for many years before moving back to my hometown here, and moving more toward the private side, is I was based in Montgomery. I was with a big firm, but we were bond counsel, issuers counsel, disclosure counsel for many governmental entities and quasi-governmental entities throughout the state of Alabama. And so even though we were in Montgomery, we were going to North Alabama, South Alabama, and everywhere in between, we didn't have the conflicts issues because those were not typically private deals, right? Those were more traditional bond deals. But it is, I think, one thing that all the firms echoed today is it's a really small bar, right? It's a really small group of lawyers who do this. And so it is not unusual, and I would say is actually normal, that in a state like Tennessee, where you don't have, New York City or Chicago or something like that. But you have counsel that works throughout the state, and that's very, very normal. And part of it is the conflicts reason, but part of it is there are just only so many people who can do this, and not any single jurisdiction has enough work to provide a full practice for any attorney.
Thank you for sharing. So with that said, what I would ask the board members to do is to, take time, reflect on, the comments, reflect on the presentations. You have the responses as well. And we can continue this discussion at our next meeting. Again, at that point, if this board chooses to do so, we could move forward with the candidate if we feel we have a qualified pool, which it sounds like we do. And then at that point, we could work on an engagement letter that would then subsequently come before the board. Again, as chair, I think this is an important decision for us. So, the idea of today was, let's do this, get the information there, but not be rushed or pressured to make a decision.
Am I correct in thinking that we can't approve any bond deals until we hire somebody?
I'm about to.
Oh, sorry.
That was going good. That was going to be the next thing. So with that said, that's what we'll do. So item 4, very quickly, Chairman's report. There are a couple items I want to get into, but I will hold off on today just due to timing. So let's talk to your question very quickly on that. So our Issuers Counsel has tendered their resignation to me, and I want to thank Bob. We all know Bob for his service. He's done a great job, and again, as I've shared with this board, it's been a challenging time for me as chair, and I think, but it's just part of life between Margaret going to counsel, Josh coming in, Courtney's been awesome as well, but we have that, and then we've also had new board members, and then I get into a conversation with Bob, and he's saying, hey, I'm looking to retire soon. So there's been a lot going on. And so I do thank Bob because, candidly, he stayed on longer than what he anticipated because I asked him on behalf of the board, hey, we're going through this process. We don't want to be rushed. We want to find the right candidate. Will you stay on? But that time has come, which is okay. That's fine. And so I asked Bob, will he come to a future meeting and say bye to everyone? So we will see him again, and really appreciative to his service. To your question, yes, I would say that, there are potential items that there is a potential item that was deferred. That matter has been reviewed from a legal perspective already, but certainly on new deals, yes, we should. I don't see why we should do any new deals at this time. We don't have Issuers Counsel, and to the point I said as well, we want to look at maybe our application, looking at our fees as well. So, and that's where the part came in about that part is a board decision, but certainly having a partner that can be a resource as we go through that process. So, but even that, with that being the case, as chair, I don't think this board should feel rushed and impelled if we don't feel like we have the right candidate or if there's more information. If we come back at the next meeting and this board says, and the feeling of the board is, hey, we want the top 2. These are the 2 candidates we want to come back before us. As chair, I will set that up. So know that, but that is correct to your hope that answers your question. Next item, and like I said, I'll be brief just due to timing, but I'm glad that we had such a robust discussion with the candidates. Next meeting will be March 31st, so that's a week from tomorrow, here at Sonny West at 10 a.m. Again, we've had to make a few changes due to spring break last week, and then certainly the availability of this building due to the upcoming election. So our next meeting is March 31st, and I do again thank you all for your flexibility on that. And then after that one date, just to let you all know, this board, again, back in the fall, did approve a bond for an affordable housing project in East Nashville, known as 900 Dickerson. I've been in touch with the developer. That's the Dominium project. They are having a groundbreaking on April 6th. And you should have received invitations for that. It might have gone to your spam. Yeah, you should have received that though. So, by email, because I did speak to them. So just want to make sure that people are aware of that. Again, that was a deal that was approved in case folks want to attend. So anyway, I'll stop there just due to timing, but thank everyone. With that, do we have a motion to adjourn? All right, with that said, we are adjourned. And I thank you for your time. Have a wonderful day. Thank you.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.